They're passageways, in essence. Now, some are human, augmented by humans. This is information we've gotten from Dan Burish and from others. But there are also specific natural stargates here on Earth in which you're in linking with your pineal gland, in going internally. You're also going to follow, and this gets into the work of Ashiana Dean, and I don't know if you followed that work or looked at it at all, but it's absolutely fascinating. The idea, just as there are grid lines in the Earth, there are passageways, and you will, even with your light body, be following these passageways through the universe.
Well, that's exactly right. That's what actually the Australian Aborigines walkabout was. There were pathways in between these hot spots where they could go, and Ayers Rock being one of them. And there's hot spots here all over the place. Yeah. So I mean, the hyperdimensional link to the three dimensions is sort of what I call orthogonal. In other words, it's at right angles to us. So we travel, across the Earth in a straight line, walking around or driving or whatever. But the hyper universe is actually at a direct right angle to what we're doing, and it comes down through the pineal gland. And humans are the only animal that walks upright, and so we can attenuate our pineal gland directly into the slipstream of hyperdimensional energy that's coming down from outer space, actually, and use that to really do anything. I mean, I'm really trying to say is that it's possible for you, Carrie, to hold a bit of lead in your palm, go into a place that is a hot spot, go into a hyperdimensional place, come back and open up your palm, and the lead is gold. And I'm saying that this happens frequently, and that anything is possible. And once we realize that,
ultimately we can we are creators. We are co-creators. That's the ultimate, objective of this game, if you will.
It is, and it's the ultimate objective of the people in charge to make sure we never find it out. Okay, so I use this analogy all the time. Jehovah is the chief prison warden, okay? And he tells Adam and Eve that they can eat of anything in the garden but the tree of knowledge, okay? So Eve, who's a typical woman, isn't going to listen to that. And so she wanders in, and there's a snake wrapped around the tree. And the snake says, Jehovah's a liar, You can eat of the fruit of the tree of knowledge, and you will not die. He said you would die, but I guarantee you can eat that and you won't die. And Eve said, really? And so she picked the apple, she took a bite, and she didn't die, proving once that Jehovah lied, that the snake is telling the truth. So what's the symbology here? The symbology is this. The tree of knowledge has apples. Apples are shaped like the hyperdimensional vortex. If you slice an apple at 19.5 degrees, you will see a pentagon of seeds, okay? Because life forms into a pentagon once it transmutes down from hyperdimensional to 3D. That's why animals and plants and humans are all shaped with 5 sides. And so we can understand what Jehovah is.
I'm sorry. It's just that you're also delineating the Luciferian precepts here. So I know, and you have to acknowledge that, because that is what the Illuminati live by. You've just laid it out very clearly and simply for the listeners. And I think that's important, because they need to understand that the Illuminati are following these basic truths that are embedded in our reality, but they're following them in a certain way. And so that the truths, it doesn't make the truth, it's like using, a tool. They use the tool. And the tool may be the pentagram, whatever. It's how it's used that matters.
That's right. The Illuminati inverts the pentagram and turns it upside down, which turns it into a goat's head. And so you can see that they invert. Yeah, they turn life into death. And they'd love to do that. They remember what their chief goal is to pervert this knowledge any way they can so we can't figure it out. So what they're trying to do all the time, they take our sacred symbols and they invert them into horror so that we will not look at all because we think we're looking into the face of the devil. And we may be looking into the face of the devil.
This is also a gatekeeping aspect because the Illuminati are gatekeepers. And like any gatekeepers, they use horror to turn you away from the gate. But if you're not affected by the so-called horror, ultimately you go through the gate. They know this. It's just that they've worked very hard to construct the prison on the one side. But they themselves, I mean, this is interesting because we also have to deal with the fact that these are human beings, that they are going through the same processes that we are, and that they ultimately have a choice. And I'm a big fan of what is in essence happening here, which is the Illuminati defectors. At this time, we are having a changing of the guard, and it involves the rulers of the Anunnaki. And I'm wondering if you have also tapped into the notion of the return of the Anunnaki and whether or not there are indeed two brothers who are at war with each other and so on.
Well, I mean, that's our most ancient mythology is about Osiris and Set and their eternal war. And so, yeah, I do buy that. And I think we have to understand is that we're let me how to put this right. So there are, I'm going to try to explain this so that everyone gets it. There are etherions, as Paul Violette would call them, that are floating throughout the universe, and they are the packets or the quanta that they're talking about in quantum physics. They're the very base of all reality, all 3D reality, okay? And when say you block these etherions by putting a planet in front of yourself or whatever, you can temporarily block these etherions, and what happens is that your light body is no longer being sort of peppered by these quantum material, and you are liberated. So if you go into a place like the King's Chamber, in the pyramid, there are no magnetic fields in there. Your compass will point at you. And this was done to create a shield from the etherions so that the light body could more easily grow and get bigger. And so what's happening is that on December 21st, 2012, and actually every single December for like the last 20 years and for the 20 years beyond 2012, on the solstice, the sun is blocking the center of the galaxy, the major dynamo of these etherions, as Paul Violette has shown in his work. And so what's happening is that every December we wake up a little more, and it's been going on for 20 years. And because suddenly the confusing field of dominating etherions pouring out of the center of the galaxy is temporarily stopped, and we have kind of a mass moment of collective, right? And this is what's going on, and this is what they're really afraid of. They're afraid of the galactic alignment because they know that it stops temporarily the confusion that is going on, and when we get enough strength into our light body, we can repel anything in the universe, actually. And, there's gurus in India that were rumored to have light bodies that were hundreds of miles big. And that's why people went to live with gurus, because their light body was so big that just by being inside the light body parameter of this person, your light body would increase because it was sheltering you from spiritual quanta, I guess you would call it. And so what's going on now is we're waking up.
Any enlightened being or any being that, in other words, if your vibration is higher than the vibration of the people around you, what ultimately happens is you raise their vibrations just
That's exactly right, and that's what we need to do on a worldwide level. We need to work on creating a higher vibration, a larger light body, a big light body, a thick and strong light body, and then go out and interact with people And you will notice, I'm sure you have noticed it, I know I have, you are changing people just by being around them. And,
sure.
and it's astonishing.